Hi everybody, this is Bobby in Dify, and in this video, I will show you how to build a safe and transparent SQL workflow. In the past few weeks, we've noticed a lot of users are interested in this part, and I have concluded into two types of needs. The first need is how to make sure that in one workflow, the data from the database is in real time. And the second need is how to make sure that the answers given are correct and accurate. So here, I will show you how to build this kind of workflow, safe and transparent, step by step. It has 7 parts from the whole structure. The first is intent classifier. So this is a kind of LLM models, and it's to check whether the user query is safe. And the second is schema fetcher. It is to retrieve all the tables or the columns from the database to keep that the data is in real time and the live data is always in this workflow. The third is SQL generator, and the fourth is validator. So these two kinds of things are also LM models. The fifth one, SQL executor, it is to execute the SQL languages from the generate LM. So six is to use another LM to summarize the whole things into the human words. So before we start, let's prepare the plugin we need, and let's click the plugins, go to the Explore Marketplace, and search for database. Okay, so you will see the first one, database query. Click install. So now we have installed it. Let's return to the workflow. Okay, so I will say more in detail about every node. So the first node is intention classifier. Here there are 3 categories. The first category is to check if the user is trying to check or ask some information from the database. And the second is the user is trying to ask and insert delete out information in database. And the third is asking questions not related to the database. So here you will see that if it is trying to change some information from the database, which is in the category 2, so it will answer directly unsafe SQL, because it is forbidden in this system. The users cannot change or alter some information in the database. So if the user is trying to say something not related to the database, also answer it directly. Please ask the questions related to the database. So for example, when the user is asking what's your name or who you are, like these kinds of questions, so we do not need to understand and reply to them. So just answer it directly, ask something about database. So it is very useful in some projects of the company when they are trying to pour some information from their database and send it to the users. But when the users is trying to say something not related to the database, so how can the company reply? Just reply that please ask the things about the database. Or when the user is trying to change something from the database, also reply unsafe SQL blocked. So you can change the answers from your words. This is just a demo. So the second, if the classifier just adds the user is trying to check something, just goes to the next node, which is called schema fetcher. And you can see the detail. This schema fetcher is actually the torch we just installed. So here we put Postgres SQL. And please remember to put all the passwords or the host name, the database name, the user's name as the environment variables. So we just do not need to type the whole things again. We just give it here to make them become environmental variables. The important things here is to fill in the query SQL. So here the SQL we put is trying to select all the tables name, right? All the columns name in this database. So this node is to get the live data from the database. Okay, this node. And after fetch all the data or the schema, it goes to the next node, SQL generator. So here we have two kinds of inputs. The first is the information that you got from the schema fetcher. We put it as context. And also the user's questions, which is system's query. So here, please pay attention to the rules. The first rule, which is important, is only select queries. So it is keep the SQL is safe and never use insert, update, delay, job, or alter these keywords. And also to limit the query into 10 rows unless otherwise specified. So you can change the words or change the number by yourself, just by your, that depends on your database. Okay, so after generate, it will validate. So here, three inputs, the user's query, the schema, and SQL query. So here we have also classify it into 4 groups. The first group is when the SQL is invalid, which means LM judge that the SQL generated from the last node in this SQL language, some kinds of or some columns name, some tables name is not included from the schema, so it will output SQL invalid. And make sure that you have typed these several words. The output is adjacent. So there were 3 things: status, type, and message. So in this message, it will give the detailed reason about what's the problem. Okay, so for the first one, it just gives validate fields. Something is not found in something. So it means this is not in the schema. And the second is entity alignment, which makes sure that the entity is the same from the entity that the user is asking for. So for example, when the user is asking about company, but the company is not included in the schema, and it is searching, so the SQL generated by the node is user, so it will return it entity alignment. The third is user intent relevance. So it means when the SQL generated is irrelevant with the user's actual intent. Okay, so it will output user intent relevance. So the last one is valid SQL, which means, yeah, it generates the correct one. So it outputs nothing So the message here is empty, like here. Okay, so following this is an if and else, 4 categories. Just answer it directly. If it is invalid, give the human word, sorry, I couldn't understand your request properly, and give the JSON for the reasons. So why this is important? Because for this kind of sentence, it is for the users. But for this one, it is for the developers. It will help the developers find what is the problem in this workflow, or whether the the SQL generated is false, and what the problem is here. And also entity alignment, the same thing. I couldn't find the data, and also following the JSON. User intent relevance. It is about, you can say your question seems too general. Could you specify what you want to check? So if it is valid, it will execute by the store again. So the query SQL you put is the SQL that generated. So finally, you will just put an LM models, which is result summarizer, just puts the whole things in the human words. But here, if it cannot be checked or something the user is asking for cannot be checked from the database, so it just return no records match your query. So if it can be checked, it will be summarized by this model. Okay, get the final answers. So here, an important thing you need to notice is the temperature of the model. If you click this one, you will see that what is the temperature? If the temperature is higher, it means the LM model will output a random answer. So if it is quite lower, it will give you something more absolute. So for here, SQL generator and SQL validator, we need to make sure that the output is absolutely correct. So we need to put the temperature become 0. However, for the summarizer, we can put the temperature become higher because this is the human words. So we can put it become more random. Otherwise, it may be boring for the users. So this is the whole structure of the workflow. Let's have a test. Such as I'm asking check for Alice email. Alice is a kind of user, and we also have the email from the users table. So because we put the temperature become 0, so the ARM will give the answers very quickly. Okay, Alice email, so check for the project Alice bots. So it execute, which means, yeah, it is correct. So if you're asking for something not relevant to the database, like what is name, okay, so it answers, please ask related to database. So please change the Alice email to Bobby actively So unsafe SQL blocked. So you can see that everything will work well if you set the SQL workflow like this. And if you're asking for some information which is not included in the database, such as I'm asking a user which is called Bobby, check for user Bobby. Let's see what it will give us. You see, no records match required. So if you are trying to search for something like please search for company. So we do not have this kind of table in our database. So what it will output? Yeah, entity alignment. Company not found in the schema. It is output users. So you see, for this kind of output, the first one is for the users, and the second one is for the developers. So it will, for developers, it will be more easier to them for them to see what is the problem here. So just publish it and everything is done.